people in this world who are fighters. There are few people who are willing to sacrifice their name, their life, their job. Connie, what? There are few people in this world. Connie. Oh, that's so much better. You have to understand that this movement is against the government. The people are supposed to be in control of the government, but things are turned upside down right now. And in very few instances in America are people willing to stand up and fight for our children and families. They risk their job. They risk fake news stories. They risk their reputation and their name, their co-workers. Even inside the family rights movement, you get trashed. It is not an easy road to walk. Connie regularly has risked everything for years because she understands what is right. And she walks in light, and she walks the path of truth, and she is a true fighter. I have never met anyone with as much energy as Connie regularly. She is absolutely incredible. She's going to be one of the biggest changes in this movement because she's been fighting for years and she's not going to quit. And we love her. And there is really, honestly, no one as amazing as Connie. I mean, it's insane. And she has given up everything to do this for everyone. She's given up her job. She's had criminal trial and convicted, why? Because she was doing her job. Most attorneys who have stood up are pretty much at the cemetery now. They've been suicided, they've disappeared, they're dead. Connie's still here fighting and she's not giving up. So,
Nancy
Connie,
Schaefer.
we would like to give this to you. The Power of One acknowledges Connie regularly for outstanding dedication to the Family First Preservation Services Act, signed into law February 2018. You have to understand she's been coming to Washington, D.C. for years before there was a voice. There wasn't a voice before, but there was Connie here fighting for everybody, and she's not going to stop, and we love her.
And I did make history. I'm the probably only person in America who ran for judge, got 25% of the vote with 2 felonies and a suspended license. And on the day of the election, they were so afraid that I was going to win that they sent me an email at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on election day saying you're disbarred.
Connie's going to be one of the really important people up here at the Hill too. You watch, and we're gonna be the change.
And all of that is not worth one single child that's lost. No. It isn't. So you give up your children. It's just the path. It's just the path. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, I'm back. I was glad to be your dancing entertainment a little while ago. I'm here to acknowledge someone who I absolutely 6 months ago had no idea existed. But if it weren't for this individual, none of us would be standing here right now. Right in this place, right now. What it took was for one person to say, we need to do something. And I'm going to do something. I want to do this. I want to do DC. Today, we are here because of one individual who decided to get on that pony and ride it all the way to DC. Let me get this wrapper out of my hand here. The Power of One acknowledges Karen Cook as an outstanding advocate dedicated to family preservation and child welfare reform. Washington Monument, Washington, D.C., May 21st, 2022. Karen, in honor.
You want to say something?
Okay, it's the first step, and I'm so honored. Never set out to get a plaque, but I'm grateful and I appreciate every bit of it. But remember, it's the first step. From the beginning, I said we all start with baby steps. Baby steps, and then we start to walk, and then we run. And I'm going to tell you what, folks, we're going to run. We're ready. I know there's not a lot here today, but I know the number of people that are out there behind us. We're not alone. And as I told you earlier, make sure you help others. Reach out and network and find the help they need. And take care of yourself and keep yourself healthy doing it. That's one thing I forget. Sometimes it's 7 o'clock at night and I realize I'm still on that first cup of coffee and I haven't ate a bite all day. And then people call me and they say, Karen, get off the phone, get off Facebook. And I've had a nice break from Facebook. I'm sorry, folks, I have been shut down. They will, and I didn't even post. I stayed away from it for 2 weeks out of fear, and I wanted to make sure if something emergency came, I could get it out there, and they still shut me down. So the powers that will control us, and they'll fight us. The evil's out there, but don't let the evil get you. Stop and take a moment. Remember, we're seeing blessings every day, every day, every day. Thank you.
All right, we have someone else we'd like to acknowledge. This person has been a force to be reckoned with in the child welfare reform arena now for at least 8 years. Her experience and her journey is just inspiring, and she makes it her responsibility to make sure that we all can get to DC, that we all can figure out how to get our lawmakers to hear us, to listen to us, and meet with us. And this person is someone who is so unassuming in her day-to-day life, but when she gets to DC, she is a powerhouse, and she's an inspiration to all of us. I know to myself and to our team from Connecticut, we just look up to her with everything that we have, and we are grateful, as many of you are, to know her and to have her part of this movement. We have an award for Kathleen Arthur. The Power of One acknowledges Kathleen Arthur for her outstanding dedication to the Family First Prevention Services Act, which was passed in 2018 with work beginning in 2016, signed into law February 9th, 2018. We are here at the Washington Monument, Washington, D.C., May 21st, 2022. Oh, Kathleen, thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Say a few words.
Okay. Change is like a wave. It can start very slowly, but it's very methodical, and it needs power in order to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we are a wave, and we are going to be a tsunami. We are going to be a tidal wave. We are going to be whatever it takes to get the change that we need. We need education, we need support, and we need to have just absolute desire. You have to be able to, really treat it almost like a life's mission. And remember that it's not just for you that you are fighting. It's for all those thousands and thousands and thousands of children who are being sex trafficked in foster care. All those thousands and thousands and thousands of parents who have had their child removed unlawfully. We need to keep fighting, and we will. I know that. I'm surrounded by wonderful people, and we are growing and growing, and we are making progress. But boy, we've got a long ways to go. So let's keep at it. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more award we'd like to give out. If I could have Kimberly Lowe come up to the stage with me for a moment. This next person, thank you, is a powerhouse in her own right. And, we see all of us working so hard at our state levels, and we do everything that we can, and you're all here part of a network. When it comes to networking, this next person is beyond anything that I have ever seen, honestly. And so the fact that she is here today is really quite miraculous as well. While planning this event, this individual got a diagnosis that was really grim. and she ended up having 2/3 of her lung removed just a few short weeks ago. And she is here today as part of our movement because that is her commitment and her conviction to the fact that child welfare reform is not just something that we need one voice to lead. We need us all to lead, and we got to show up, we got to be there, and we all need to recognize that we all have lives, but when it comes to getting our voice out and getting lawmakers to hear us, this person knows that that kind of commitment, it's tough, but we show up.
Amy Hollybar has been completely selfless for years. Amy first contacted me when she saw me on Facebook, and after she met me, we spent years on the phone every single night with parents around the country. And while I'm not the best listener in the world, Amy is. I'm good at telling people how to solve their problems. Amy is so empathetic, and she always has the right words to say to people, because sometimes a parent just needs, or a grandparent just needs someone to talk to. And Amy was always there for them. She was there for them in the middle of the night. She keeps her phone on. She's standing here today, cancer-free, after being diagnosed with lung cancer. 2/3 of her lung was just removed 3 weeks ago, and here she is, full of energy, carrying equipment over, setting everything up. I mean, she is our example of hope, and there's no one who works harder. She's working with judges, with attorneys. She puts in countless hours like you cannot believe the amount of work that she's doing to create changes around this country. So thank you, Amy, on behalf of all the families.
So I'd just like to say, the power of one acknowledges Amy Hollybar as an outstanding advocate dedicated to family preservation and child welfare reform at our Washington Monument, Washington, D.C., May 21st, 2002.
Thank you, everyone. I'm honored to be here. Beyond words, I'm honored. And I'm not afraid. I just want you to know, Kylie, Debbie, Sophia, AJ, Jack, Levi, Zachary, Lily, Amaya, and Tristan. It's been almost 4 years. Honey is still here. Honey is still fighting for you. I will not give up on you. Even cancer couldn't stop me from fighting for you. I will continue to fight for my children. I will continue to be a voice for all parents. I will continue to be an advocate. I am on the phone 24 hours a day. My phone is on 24 hours a day. If you need help, let me know. If I can't find an answer for you or I don't have an answer for you, I will find your answer. I'm deeply honored. Thank you so much.
Everyone give it up for our fearless leaders! And this is a movement that invites each of you to step up to the caliber that they do. It takes each of us to be no longer silent. Woo! Thank you, guys. Next, I would like to invite up the Free Bodie campaign. They have a bit to share with us. Come on up, y'all. Give them a warm welcome. All the way from California, right? All the way from California.
Thank you so much for having us here, for all of you being here. We're going to make this really quick because I know that time is of the essence. So first of all, my son and my daughter were taken on March 8th, 2019, under the misperception that they were over-medicated due to my daughter having schizophrenia, my son having autism, intermittent explosive disorder, a little bit of psychosis, and they were diagnosed by real doctors, UCLA, Kaiser. They were given prescriptions that were very real for very real illnesses. Judy Thomas, social worker, decided with my ex-husband that they just didn't need these medications. I was posting on YouTube. We were very high profile about my daughter's condition and what we were doing with my son as well with medication. There are side effects, and of course, We ended up on the Dr. Phil show, to make long story short, where I was portrayed as quote unquote crazy. I get it. I saw some of it. I get it. But the reality is that I'm not. And they knew that 5 days after they took my kids. Janny suffered severe withdrawals because they took her off clozaril lithium, the serious medications that were prescribed 10 years ago by Dr. D'Antonio at UCLA. They realized, 5 days later, she goes into severe withdrawals, and I'm going to let her say something about that in just a second here. On the very day, the first hearing, and this is what I want people to know, the first hearing, if the social worker is not there to be cross-examined, that is a violation of due process rights and the color of law, which they are acting on in the first place. And the color of law, this is Marissa. We're going to be starting a talk show called The Schofield Truth. So we're all going to be in it. My husband, Corey, Marissa Nicholas, and Janny Schofield. And the color of law, really quickly, is the misuse of power that's clothed in authority. So if they're acting as if it is a criminal court, then guess what? The same rules apply, meaning that you get to cross-examine the preparer of the report, the social worker, that's writing stuff against you, but they don't let you. Now, this was given to me on March 13th, 2019, my court hearing. What it says in bold, and of course your eyes go up to the bold here, is children 4 or older must be present. Children 4 or younger do not need to attend the court hearing. Well, of course, they ended up not being there because they were in severe withdrawals, both my kids. So they were actually in the ER at the time getting refills of their regular medication, which they never got. This goes on and on with the refill situation, by the way. Several doctors prescribed the refills, just didn't get them every single time. Okay, so, but what I highlighted here in red, and people might miss this along the way, it says the social worker will not be there, but his or her court report will. That is given to you by the DCFS social worker who is acting under the color of law and violating your due process law immediately before you even get into the courtroom. So that is something I wanted to say for every person here. My guess is you were never able to cross-examine the person who wrote the initial report against you. That is a violation of your due process rights under the 6th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, but also under California Rule of Court 5.674. In our case, in our state, and I assume other states have some of this as well, but there is a rule, California Rule of Court, and my husband Corey will tell you about that really briefly.
All right, California Rule of the Court specifically says that in dependency court, at the detention hearing, which is the first hearing that you go in front of a judge, it says that if, see, here's the catch, if the parent requests to cross-examine the social worker, then the court may not consider any report without the cross-examination of said reporter. Okay? Now, the thing is, I guess the judges use this if as, well, the lawyer never said anything about it, so let's just move on. So basically, you don't get the opportunity to cross-examine the social worker, to get them to answer a question differently, to point out their lies, to point out the fact that they are lacking any evidence to support their claim. You don't get to talk to them. They just move on to the next case, the next court date. And then you've already lost those rights. And the lawyer that she has right now says, oh yeah, your rights were violated, you were screwed, but I can't do anything about it now.
And meanwhile, he just violated my rights the other day again, and I'm under yet another gag order. They're making it real serious this time, contempt of court if I talk about the case. So I can't talk about my son's case.
Which we just did.
I didn't, and but I will talk about the other children who are suffering severe child abuse under DCFS custody. Here's my daughter, Janny. She wants to talk on her own. Janny Schofield.
Hi, I'm Janny Schofield, and I was a former foster kid. And back in March of 2019, I went through severe medical withdrawals. I went 2 weeks without food and water, lost 20 pounds in 13 days because I could not stop throwing up, almost died of dehydration.
And they said it was what?
And they said it was the stomach flu.
Did you have a temperature?
No.
No flu, no temperature. Every parent knows that.
So, yes, sorry. We're gonna wrap it up, but we're gonna have more. Thank you, Channing. She's got so many stories to tell about her time in the system, and she really is the victim. And really quick, before we get off, I want to say, if I were guilty, if any of you were truly guilty, why is it we're free and our kids are locked up? Because they had to put her in a lockdown facility after they took away all of her meds for schizophrenia. I can't say my son is still locked up. Thank you so much. We're going to be doing the Schofield Truth and telling everybody, helping everybody that's going through this. Thank you.
Let's give it up for the Schofield Troop. Thank you guys so much for your bravery all the way from California. And you know, this goes to show from California to Alabama to each of our backyard, this is nothing new. And so now we're going to invite Terry LaPointe up to the stage to discuss the immense power of child abuse pediatricians. To get deeper into this, give it up for Terry, y'all.
I got involved in this movement in 2014. I was a homeschool mom, and I was doing some writing on the side. I was a breastfeeding educator, labor doula, assistant midwife. I thought that Child Protective Services was only about taking children away from horrible parents who beat the heck out of their kids. That's what I thought it was for. And I found out that nothing could be further from the truth. And I found out in honestly a much easier way than most of you did. I was invited to start investigating stories for Health Impact News for the medical kidnap division that they were starting. I had seen Justina Pelletier's case in Boston, and I thought it was an anomaly. I had no idea. I thought that something went terribly wrong, and I want to find out what's going on. And they asked me, do you want to investigate these stories? And I said, yes, because I want to know if this is a threat to my family or to other families that haven't done anything wrong. Well, I found out that Child Protective Services takes less than 17% of the children that Child Protective Services takes are taken for reasons of any kind of abuse. And the more stories I did, and I was a reporter, I was their lead investigative reporter from 2014 through the end of 2018. And I've investigated hundreds and hundreds of stories. Some of you are here because I investigated stories like yours, or you heard about a story. If you've heard of medical kidnapping, you heard of stories that we did. Well, one thing we started seeing was that there's a common element in many of these stories. Medical kidnapping is when they take a family member from an innocent family for medical kinds of reasons. I thought that was maybe a part of it. Well, these child abuse pediatricians are involved in so many of these cases, and I thought, who are they? What are child abuse pediatricians? They are in almost every children's hospital across the United States. If you go to a children's hospital with your child, chances are they've got a child abuse pediatrician or a child abuse pediatric team on staff. One thing you may not realize is they're not paid like other doctors. They're not paid by your insurance. They're paid by Health and Human Services and nonprofits that make a profit from your children. So, some parents have seen medical malpractice in their kid's case at the hospital. There's something going on. And they say, I need to talk to your administrator. I'm going to report you. I'm going to sue you for medical malpractice. And it may very well be legitimate. But you know what the hospital's policy is at that point? They will call in a child abuse pediatrician who may never see you and may never see your child and may never talk to you or never talk to your child. They may only look at reports. And then they go to court and they tell the judge that this had to be abuse, that your child suffers from something that the parent, usually the mother, is guilty of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Well, Munchausen is a cover-up for medical malpractice. That is how they shield their doctors from medical malpractice. So I started digging, and over the years I dug deeper and deeper. The roots of Child Protective Services, we all know about the Adoption and Safe Families Act, ban ASFA, that Connie regularly talks about all the time, and Kathleen Arthur, we talk about ASFA and how bad it is, and all of you know how bad Title 4E is. And then there's CAPTA, 1974. But before CAPTA came along, there was a seminal paper, a landmark paper in 1964 called the Battered Child Syndrome. And that paper that had been in the works and in the planning for decades, this started before anyone here, anyone within the sound of my voice, before any of us were born. This well-orchestrated, well-synchronized plan was in place. And they wrote about the battered child syndrome in order for pediatric radiologists, and this started right after the x-rays were discovered, the Röntgen rays they called them. And they started this field of pediatric radiology because, these doctors are so smart, they can identify abuse that nobody else is smart enough to figure out is happening. Because they can look at the x-ray and they can see, multiple fractures in various stages of healing. I'm sorry, if you ever see that in a news report about a parent who has a child with multiple broken bones, but they are in various stages of healing, that is baloney I call bull. It's not real. It's not real. It may very well be infantile rickets, which actually some of the photographs in that paper were infantile rickets, and they called it abuse. They call it shaken baby syndrome. Osteoporosis imperfecta, osteopenia of prematurity. There's all kinds of different things that the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There's all kinds of these things. There are other things that can cause these same symptoms. Well, all right. So I want to read you this article, a quote from an article that I wrote about a deep dive into the history of child abuse pediatrics. It says pediatric radiologists were the original child abuse pediatricians who cleverly positioned themselves in such a way as to assure the continuation of the demand for their services, as well as to secure a never-ending flow of donations from nonprofits as well as federal dollars for their continued research into conditions that often they made up, to the detriment of innocent families in the United States and around the world. You know what that's called? It's marketing. They marketed themselves, and they got a corner on the market. And when you go into a courtroom and a child abuse pediatrician has accused you, I've covered so many of these cases where the judge and the social workers will take the word of a child abuse pediatrician who is not actually an expert in that medical condition that's happening. And they will ignore 6, 8, as many as a dozen reports from real doctors who are real specialists in that field. And they will ignore those because the child abuse pediatrician, who has the white robe of God, they act like, has said it's abuse. It can't be anything but abuse. And they'll tell the courts. They even have this society that they formed called the Helfer Society. Look it up. Helfer. They started this. Ray Helfer was involved in that paper in 1964, 62, the battered child syndrome. And they are an organization, like a lobby of child abuse pediatricians and one of their goals is to educate the media and the public so that they'll buy their explanation of the facts and their interpretation and ignore the other ones. Well, I have some good news. In Texas, in September of 2021, a new law went into effect to rein in that almost omnipotent power of child abuse pediatricians. In Texas, if a parent is accused by a child abuse pediatrician, the parents now have a right to a second medical opinion that the state pays for if they can't afford it, and they have the right to have that second opinion heard in court by the judge. This also requires the child abuse pediatricians to do an in-person exam, not act like from a distance that they know what's going on. This is a bill that we need in many other states. And I know Connie in Tennessee, they were trying to get that passed. This is something that needs to sweep the nation, because you need the tools to fight back against these people that don't care about you or care about your child. Another fact, and Justina's Law. There was a bill that was introduced like 8 years ago by Representative Michelle Bachmann to say that you can no longer use foster children or wards of the state for medical experimentation. Did you know that once a child is a ward of the state, they can legally be used as a medical lab rat for drug testing, for medical research, even dangerous medical research, without their parents' knowledge or consent? The way they bypassed the Nuremberg Code that we established after, the Holocaust to prevent that kind of stuff from happening again, the way they bypass that is they let the social worker or the judge give consent in place of the parents. Justina's Law, or a version of it, would say they can't use federal funds to experiment on our children. And it is time for these bills to come about and all the things that we're doing. Because, guys, if you don't realize it, the child abuse pediatricians, they were behind starting Child Protective Services in their former name as pediatric radiologists. That group, they are directly responsible for every child who is taken by Child Protective Services. And I have made a vow that I will not leave this planet in the name of Jesus until the practice of child abuse pediatrics is ended.
Thank you so much. It is just incredible, the information that is being shared here. We all got to come together and share our skills, share what we know. Next, I am super honored to invite Laura Thomason up to the stage. You know her, you love her, coming from Missouri, about whistleblowers and silence. Give it up for Laura.
Who's hot? So my name is Laura Thomason. I'm from Missouri. I am a whistleblower, and I'm also what they would say big mouth. I do not stay silent. I have been personally affected by the corruption within Children's Division and the corruption and the politics that are played between the medical field and the social services. They operate by the public health model, which allows them to both control the medical part of it and the human services part of it. So they control the whole narrative. I also am a whistleblower. I graduated high school late in life, okay? I am an overcomer. I went to prison in 1994, and I got my life right. I went to school. I'm in graduate school. I am a counselor. But I got into the field, and I couldn't wait to get in the field and give back what was, given to me. And I got in there only to learn the hard way that they also play politics with children's life. As an integrated health specialist working for a company, Compass Health, I was in charge of taking care of children that were at risk. I was their advocate. Say in school they had meltdowns because they took them out of PE. Then I'd be the one to call, and I'd say, hey, maybe let's try something different. Maybe not take them out of PE. Okay, but as I was working my job, loving the clients, I come across so many times when they did not hold the best interest of the children. And instead, they put them in danger. They changed my notes, to fit their narrative. They had a contract with the state. They seen mainly foster children and parents, so they controlled the whole narrative. Well, let's just say at this time I was taking care of my grandchildren, and they were also taken out of retaliation. So I lost my job, but I also lost another job as a drug and alcohol counselor. Now, who better could counsel a recovering addict than a recovering addict? But they do not allow rehabilitation. They do not believe in it. They just preach it and they sell it, but it isn't what they stand for. So why all the silence? Well, we fear losing our stance. We feel losing our jobs. We fear losing our children and our grandchildren. We're just afraid. Well, we're not afraid no more, right? Are we afraid? No more afraid. Okay. Long story short, I also want to address Michaela's law. Michaela was a young girl out of Missouri who said, if you make me go back to my abuser, I will kill myself. And she killed herself. So she is no longer on earth, okay? The judges are trying to, not only have they whipped that family away from everything they own and taken everything they own, they are trying to force the younger daughter to see her abuser as well. So this is a really high profile case, and we would like you, if you do not know what Michaela's law is, I will post it on my Facebook, and I would appreciate it if you would please look at it, okay? We need the support. Corruption diverts talent and resources to a wasteful end, you guys. And we are living in a world that is so superficial that they would rather fire good counselors who care about the children and put in counselors that don't give a shit or that don't want to sit there and do what is correct or what is right for these kids. They do what they are told to do. And then they go home and they say to themselves, well, I'm not corrupted. I don't do bad things. I am good with the children. You know, I don't try. I'm always putting, I can't help it that this system that I'm a part of is broken. But they can help it. They can help it. Okay? If they would speak out, they can help it. So I'm going to end with this. No more silence. Can I hear you? No more silence.
What a rock star is she. Y'all gotta follow her on Facebook, watch her videos. She is not gonna stop. Ooh, I got some things up here, sorry. Is Lisa here? Lisa Breeslink? No? Here she comes. All right, we got Lisa from California with, what is it? PAS Family Advocacy. Give it up for Lisa. Thank you.
Hi guys. It's an honor to be here, and thank you, Karen Cook, for inviting me. I can relate to every word that is shared up here. My horrific experience began October 2017, where I was, at the time, a single mom sharing 50-50 custody with my ex-husband for 7.5 years in San Diego. I was working as a registered behavior therapist for Proof Positives, doing behavior therapy for children with autism, going into the homes, helping parents educate on least restrictive measures for physical restraints and all these things. And, you know, I wasn't perfect, but I was on doctor-prescribed anxiety meds at the time. And I got pulled over, and my 11-and-a-half-year-old was in the car. And with that, everything happens for a reason. This September is 5 years clean, but with that, it gave my ex-husband the authority. I guess he started working with the prosecutor, Emily Garson, who's known for stopping parent reform in San Diego, and a protective order was signed on October 14th, 2017. And with that, the next day, he stopped taking my calls for the first time in 15 years. And I knew something was up. I had no idea that the next almost 4 years that my little girl who lived with me half-time, lived with him, she would be in full alienation, become part of the system, be sexually assaulted, be told lies. This is the pathology, the parental alienation. But it was beyond brutal because I was told by Cindy Davis in California at San Diego Central Court, if you ever want to see your daughter again, you're going to do exactly what this court says. And that entailed 4 months in program where I did address childhood trauma and healed to the best of my ability, surrounded by amazing women. But they also made me do 82 days in jail, seven different arrests, and 4 months house arrest. And I didn't know at the time, because as you're standing up as a parent for your rights, prosecutors don't like that, district attorneys don't like that, judges don't like that, and it was total retaliation. Anything I tried to do for the courts, it wasn't good enough. It took me a total of 18 months of meeting these stipulations. Meanwhile, I'm trying to understand what's going on. There's no constitution in these courts. I'm filing motions in the family court seeking remedies. Everything's being denied. I'm being threatened with jail time for sending my beautiful daughter Christmas presents. Meanwhile, this same state actor has already been investigated by the FBI. The guy who founded California Coalition for Families and Children is now dead because he was going after the same state actor and the California bar. And there's a reason for everything. Colburn Stewart, may he rest in peace. But with that, it set me on a path to understand what the hell is going on behind the scenes. If there's no constitution, you can't mention constitution in these courts, then juvenile court takes over, and then violation of due process 1,000%, because the parents are kept in the dark. Meanwhile, these are unlawful. They have no lawful authority to intrude on our homes at all. We don't consent to these agents. We don't consent to this political subdivision, all for profit. Title 4D is child support. Title 4E is the juvenile court system. When you look in depth, and it took me 4 years to get to understand a little bit of this knowledge, only being mentored by like the president of FCLU, but now we're trying to get all the oaths on file. We're attacking the surety bonds, because that's where it comes down to. These state actors are insured under indemnity insurance. And if you look carefully, I'll show any one of you the certificate of corporation formation for my judge, Daniel Belsky, from 1992. I guess he was gearing up to do commerce in these courts. And he retired January 2021. But I tell you, the last 2 years of him on the bench, I wasn't quiet at all. And my daughter's now home, praise God. And you know, some of these state actors are still up to no good, but what they're doing is they're operating under a legal fictional entity, and hence why they maybe won't testify, because they're signing these papers and name all caps, but yet they're not being liable in their personal capacity. It's all for profit. We don't consent. One of my favorite sentences is from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Well, unalienable, you cannot place a legal lien on unalienable rights. Not inalienable, unalienable. So with these God-given rights, they don't have a lawful authority. So I want to suggest to any parent, don't play these fictitious games of courts. I mean, if you're guided to do and comply just to get your babies home, and then go after them, do what you have to do, but there are other remedies with their oaths, with their insurance, and when we start attacking their insurance, they don't want to be liable. So anyway, some of the pages on Facebook are Children's Rights Movement. Nick Guerrero is part of the Fathers Have Rights Movement. I help him with that. We founded PAS Family Advocacy, which is based on the third step prayer. Let our pain be used for purpose to help others. There's a lot of educational content on our website and under resources, and I'm willing to share whatever content with you guys. But it's an honor to be here, and thank you for letting me share part of my journey. Thank you.
Give it up for Lisa. Came all the way across the country to be here with us today in 95-degree heat. All of y'all are heroes. All right, next up, we are going to hear from Brian Lee, our fabulous sound and tech guy. Give it up for Brian. He's been keeping this all running, and he is going to share with us about this woman right behind me here, Nancy Schaefer. Give it up for Brian.
Thank you. Well, there's actually two things I'm going to be talking about today. It's Nancy Schaefer as well as veterans. But first and foremost, I want to thank the Family Forward Project for allowing me to speak here today. It's an honor to stand amongst my fellow advocates here in our nation's capital. Ever since I began my own personal battle over 12 years ago, I have served our community by bringing awareness to the unjust laws and corruption within the family court system. Just like many here today, I began researching everywhere I could to find answers. Answers to what, when, where, why, and how this was happening to me, and if I was alone. During my research, I found many disturbing articles and videos related to family law and CPS corruption. There were a few articles that really struck out to me and hit the core. These articles introduced me to former Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer, as you see beside me. The videos and articles of Nancy really showed how in-depth the corruption goes. Nancy was one and the only one that is known of a representative of her time to speak out against the family court and CPS system. Nancy was dedicated in exposing the corruption within the system. After speaking with many families in her own investigation of the family court system, Nancy wrote a scathing report on her findings. This report was called The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services. I will mention a few of her inserts, and these are her words today. Having worked with probably 300 cases statewide, and now hundreds and hundreds across the nation, and in nearly every state, I am convinced there is no responsibility and accountability in child protective system. That caseworkers and social workers are very often guilty of fraud. They withhold and destroy evidence. They fabricate evidence, and they seek to terminate parental rights unnecessarily. That the Adoption and Safe Families Act, set forth in motion first in 1974 by Walter Mandel and later in 1997 by President Bill Clinton, offered cash bonuses to the states of every child they adopt out of foster care. In order to receive adoption incentive bonuses, local child protective services needed more children. They must have merchandise, children, that sells. And you must have plenty so the buyer can choose. And some of the recommendations that Nancy had mentioned, she calls for independent audit of all state child protective services and for federal congressional hearing on child protective services nationwide. She also recommended to abolish the federal and state financial incentives that have turned child protective services into a business that separates families from money. She also stated, uphold the laws when someone fabricates or presents false evidence. If a parent alleges fraud, hold a hearing with the right to discovery of all evidence made available to parents. In her final remarks of her report, she has witnessed such injustice and harm brought to so many families that I am not sure if I even believe reform of the system is possible. The system cannot be trusted. It does not serve the people. It obliterates families and children simply because it has the power to do so. Children deserve better. Families deserve better. It's time to pull back the curtain and set our children and families free. If you would like to read her full report, please look up Nancy Schaefer up on Google and YouTube. It's unfortunate, but on March 26, 2010, Nancy and her husband, Bruce Schaefer, were killed in their home. The investigators ruled the case to be a murder-homicide, stating that Bruce had shot Nancy and then turned the gun on himself. What were the motives for Bruce to commit such an act? It was said that there was hardships, that the Schaefers were losing their home for foreclosure, yet they had just put their home up for sale. They were downsizing for reasons of their kids were grown and had kids of their own. Not to mention, Bruce also adored his grandchildren, so there was no reason why he would do that to them. It was also mentioned that Bruce had cancer, to which could have been a possible motive, but not very likely. There are too many inconsistencies within the investigative report, leading many to believe, like myself, that Nancy and her husband were murdered for her activism against the system. Although I never got to meet Nancy in person, I, along with many in the movement, admire her work and strive to keep her legacy alive. Since her death, there have been many others like her who have stepped up to the plate, serving our community, and have paid the ultimate price defending the rights of the people. What does it mean to serve? Serve is defined as a form of action or activity by assisting others or offering a helping hand. There are many forms of service that can be rendered, such as police, fire, EMS, doctors, nurses, etc. But one service that really sticks out is our nation's veterans and active military men and women. Not many choose this form of service, nor can they identify with it. But those who do, it's a code, a lifestyle, a career like no other. We ask these men and women to sign the dotted line and swear or affirm that she will support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. This often requires them having to leave their homes for months or even years at a time. They understand the meaning of sacrifice and what that could lead to. Many have faced unthinkable situations serving overseas, only to return home with far too heavy burdens weighing down on them. One thing they did not expect, however, is having to come home to fight a completely different battle. In family and divorce court, opposing attorneys, caseworkers, and judges use wide ranges of tactics and strategies to portray our service members in a bad light. They accuse them of being irresponsible, unpredictable, mentally and emotionally unstable, claiming PTSD, and believing our service members are more vulnerable of committing domestic violence. Because of this, our service members have become a casualty of circumstance and treated like second-class citizens. They are withheld access to the children, denied certain rights that they so fought for, their benefits garnished, property seized, and become homeless, and in many cases, in an unfortunate case, a statistic of suicide. Roughly 22 veterans a day are said to commit suicide, and many of those deal with family court situations. You may be asking yourself, how do I know this? Well, because I am a veteran. I served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps with 2 combat tours. I never expected to having to fight such a war within our own borders. I have felt the disrespect and unjust acts firsthand. At the beginning of court, I was thanked and praised for my service, only to have my service twisted and used against me during the proceedings. Even with all the evidence presented in my defense against the other party by 2 attorneys, and at one point fighting pro se, it just did not matter. I was called delusional, crazy, self-absorbed, and told I should seek mental help and be put on meds. It didn't matter what I did then, and still doesn't matter what I do today. It's obvious that the courts already made up their mind, and nothing was going to change that narrative, no matter how many times I filed for more time with my children. Through the years, I have come to know many active duty and veterans who went or are still going through it. Just to name a few: Yaya McLean, Stephen Ball, Raymond Swab, Sean Pearson, Kyle Paskowitz, Christopher Rainbolt, Anthony Sabelli, and also Cash Jackson. Many of you may know one or more of these individuals and have attended events here in DC with them. I ask you here today, when is enough going to be enough? Who will stand up and fight for the weak? The system has failed our veterans and active duty members. The system has failed our families. But more importantly, they have failed our children. Change is needed, not only for our service members, but for everyone across the board. I leave you with this. I'm not a religious person. I have a spiritual faith. But Nancy Schaefer also said these words. And this is Proverb 31, Tac 8-9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. Thank you again to the Family Forward Project for allowing me to speak here today. I look forward in working with many of you to bring change for our future generations to come. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Give it up for Brian Lee, y'all. Wow. I got chills on chills. Can you believe how they treat those who put their lives on the line for our children and they go and take them? No longer silent. Y'all have to follow Brian Lee on the Restoring Families Internet Radio Network. He's got tons of content that keeps on rolling. So follow him, find him online. And next I would like to welcome Barbara Stone from Florida with the People Rights Forum. Give it up for Barbara, y'all.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank the planners for inviting me here. And before I get into a little bit of my background so that you'll have a frame of reference as to my involvement in this, I just want to say that what everybody has spoken to you about is called atrocity crimes. These are a category of crimes under international law. So what these judges and what these legislators and what these governors and what our government officials are doing in the guise of laws is perpetrating atrocity crimes. And so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background so you have a frame of reference as to where we're going with this. So I was an attorney for 25 years. I practiced real estate law. I had a license in New York and in Florida. I practiced with prominent national law firms, but I never set foot in court. So I had no idea that the courts were running a crime syndicate until I myself became a victim of the courts because my case originated in a guardianship with my mom. And so the same atrocity crimes happen in guardianship that happen in family court. So I say this because having been a victim myself and being an attorney, I made it my business to find out whether these atrocity crimes go on in other states. I was in Florida. So a group of us filed in different states. We filed in federal and in state court for remedy in Connecticut, in Delaware, in Washington, D.C., in South Carolina, in New York, and a lot of other different courts, state and federal, and all of our actions were always dismissed summarily when the other side said, failed to state a cause of action or some other nonsense that they came up with. So in the process of doing that, because I couldn't pick up the phone and call Donald Trump or call Joe Biden or call anybody that was sitting in the Oval Office, I sued them and found the same result. And so I tell you this story because I know from my own personal experience and the experience of others that I've done this with, there is no remedy in the United States. There is no remedy to these crimes because it's systemic atrocities, systemic attacks against the civilian population. And these are atrocity crimes under international law of which either the perpetrators are ignorant of or they feel like they won't be held accountable. And so what's going on in everybody's case is a form of human trafficking. And so I pulled up the definition of human trafficking from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. And I'm going to repeat it to you a couple of times because you really have to understand what's happening. And you really have to understand there is no remedy in the United States. So here's the definition of human trafficking under the UN Office of Drugs and Crime. Human trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of people through force, fraud, or deception with the aim of exploiting them for profit. So that everybody kind of understand that, you really need to be listening to this because this is what's happening with your children in child trafficking court, I call it, or happening with your parents in adult trafficking court. So I'm going to read it one more time, and then I'm going to talk to you about atrocity crimes, and then I'm going to talk to you about what is likely the only solution that we have. So I'm going to read you this definition one more time. Human trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of people through fraud, force, or deception with the aim of exploiting them for profit. So that's all that's happening. And so the crime originates with the legislators, it originates with the laws, and then it keeps all of us spinning around in human trafficking court complaining about what this judge did and what this guardian did and what CPS did, when they're all there because they're running a crime syndicate using Nuremberg laws. These are laws that have protection sounding names like guardianship or child protection, but they're fraud. They're fraud. They're done without authority. They're done under color of law, and they constitute atrocity crimes. So to go to the federal legislator, or to go to Joe, or to go to Donald, or to go to Barack, or to go to Bill, or to go to any of these people, they're all part of it. Bill Clinton signed the adoption and child protection law. He signed it. He's trafficking your kids. So I say this all the time. Wake up, America. Wake up, America. There is no remedy. There is no remedy here. And for everybody to come together, and God bless you all, because you're all crime victims. You're atrocity crime victims. So the only way we can blow this up and let the world know the monumental depth of this destruction against our families, the very reason that we're here, humanity, is to go to the only court that was established for that purpose, and that court is the International Criminal Court in The Hague in the Netherlands, that was established by the United Nations in the aftermath of the Holocaust. So that court is vested with the authority and the power to hold these government criminals accountable, and that's where we all have to go. So in the process of my journey, which started in Guardian Court in Florida, which is the human trafficking capital of the world for older people, I realized, having been in so many courts in Florida, federal and state, there's no remedy. We've assembled a group of people. We're now over 150 victims in 30 states, and we want to have every state covered. I've got a 250-page criminal complaint against the government officials that's sitting on my desk waiting to be launched in the International Criminal Court. And I want all of you, every one of you that is a victim of this court, to contact me at barbara.stone.usa@gmail.com and be a part of this filing that we're doing in the International Criminal Court. Because we say no. We say, you're not taking my rights. I own my rights. My rights were given to me under the Declaration of Independence. They are endowed by the Creator. The government didn't give me my rights. The Creator gave me my rights. And under international law, which everybody needs to start becoming familiar with, our rights are derived from human dignity. No government gets involved in giving us our rights. Our rights are derived from human dignity, and there's 9 core human rights treaties that provide for 30 rights. 30 of our rights, not the measly 3 rights that we have under the Declaration of Independence signed 250 years ago. We don't need to go back to the Declaration of Independence. We need to go forward. We need to go to the International Criminal Court. We need to declare our 30 rights under international laws, and I need all of you to write to me and be a part of what we're doing. And I'm just going to give you the information on my website, so you can look at the website because it'll give you more information. So I have 2 websites. One of them is called InGuardianRacket.com, and the other one's called PeoplesRightsForum.com. And it pretty much explains everything that I've told you about today. And all of you, again, you have to be together. You have to unite, and you have to take your rights back, because we don't have a white horse that's going to come and give us our rights back. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, we are going to have 2... Whose is this? We're going to have 2 little 5-minute speeches, and then we're going to have another intermission. And y'all are going to want to stay here because we're going to have Connie and a lot of the Bulldogs up on this stage, okay? So I would like to welcome Lynette from Alabama. She's going to talk about parental rights and incarceration. So give it up for Lynette.
So I had a little something written down, but I kind of lost my little speech. So, okay, Kim lost it. Okay, so A parent should not have to lose the rights to their child because they're incarcerated. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, and the reason I say that is because I have personal experience. My son is incarcerated, and he didn't do anything to lose his child, but he lost the rights to his child. You know, but he didn't just lose rights to her. They cut off the familiar bond. They would never let him have any contact with his child whatsoever. But they also cut off his entire family. You know, when he went to prison, the mom kind of spun out, and on her bout, she really spun out, and she spent 7 years high. Well, she's at the Love Lady, 90 days clean right now. So, you go, Tori. So, you know, there was evidence to exonerate my son before the trial ever happened. But, you know, we live in a small community of Shelby County, Alabama, where it's kind of the good old boy country. And, you know, my son was a half-day trial and was found guilty in 3 minutes and is serving a 130-month sentence. He's been incarcerated for 7 years and 5 months. You know, I haven't laid eyes on my beautiful granddaughter. I showed a couple of my family forward friends a photograph of my granddaughter that was recently found on the internet. I haven't really been able to find any concrete evidence because they hide it. I hired an attorney to contest the adoption, and he sat on my money, and then about a year later he returned my money. And he did nothing, but he returned my money. I didn't want my money, I wanted my granddaughter. She's the photographs that I showed to Connie and a few other ladies, that child has a face of trauma. She's not smiling. She was the happiest, bubbliest little girl. And she took with her a little sister, not my biological grandbaby, but still my grandbaby all the same. And we haven't seen them in a couple years. But just know that when my son's feet hit solid ground again, we going after her. So Alabama, get ready, because it ain't over. And it's not even close to being over. And, you know, that's my baby. You know, they didn't care that I have native blood. That, you know, they said, you can look at me and see that I have native blood. But they said, there's no way that little blonde-haired baby has any native blood in her. So they completely ignored it. You know, a child pays for the rest of her life because her parents made a mistake. So the child's going to pay for the rest of her life because her entire identity has been erased. Who is she now? Where did she have baby pictures? Where did I come from? It's wrong. And I'm going to say her name. Brentley Elizabeth, Lily Grace. I won't give up on you, babies. I love you. G-Mama loves you. We will never stop.
Give it up for Lynette, huh? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Lynette. All the way from Alabama. And now to close this out before the next intermission, but don't go anywhere because we still got more coming. We've got Alexis and Janelle, Freedom from the Streets, Minnesota. Give them a warm welcome, y'all. Alexis and Janelle.
How's y'all doing out there today? I don't hear y'all. All right. It's gonna start off with telling you a little story, and then how she met me and how we got the program. How she met me. Here you go, Alexis.
Okay. Hi, all. Yep. My name is Alexis Kramer. I'm with Freedom from the Streets and No More Streets. I am talking for No More Streets. I met Janelle 2.5 years ago when I was dealing with child protection in Minnesota. My 2 children were taken from my care on allegations of abusing and neglecting them. But by the grace of God, I got my 2 children back this year of January. And I just finished my my schooling to be a child protection attorney. So I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I graduate next week. And then I also graduate from the Jeremiah program as well. But before I met Janelle, I was lost. I didn't know anything about the law. I didn't know how to speak up or stand for myself. My mom passed away 6 years ago due to cancer, so she didn't get to meet my 2 children. I got one of my children with me, but my youngest is back at home. And the system is just crazy. It's just terrible about what they're doing. And this is my 3rd time being here. And I'm grateful to meet all the advocates around, the state. But when I was dealing with it, nobody was helping me in Minnesota. And it really hurt because I didn't know how to open myself up until I started going to school. I was homeless because of child protection, removing my children. And a lot of people don't recognize that there are many different reasons why people became homeless. And that's one of our issues back in Minnesota is child protection, which is the same around the whole United States. And that is why we come together here to talk about, the truth on what we see is happening with our families back at home. And when I met Janelle, she hired me right after I first went to the meeting. I told her my story. When you first tell your story, you don't know how to talk about it, so you start crying about it. And now I've been going all over, the place and just speaking my story, just telling my story. And I finally got some changes along with other advocates in Minnesota to change the whole Hennepin County division, to tell them that they need to talk about these disparities. They need to change what they're doing because they're targeting Black and brown families or families that are low income, and that needs to stop. So I'm here, Janelle. She is the founder of Freedom from the Streets and No More Streets. Thank you.
I know we got like 1-2 minutes. I just want to say that thank y'all for letting us come out here this year and last year. We appreciate it that y'all let us come out here and for the first time get to speak on here, because I know that it's different ways how people speak, but underneath Freedom from the Street, we speak from our heart, we speak from our truth, and I let our truth set us free. Let our truth set us free.
Let's hear it for Alexis and Lynette. I'm so sorry. Janelle, Freedom for the Streets, and Lynette. Because, incarceration, homelessness, these are issues we need help with, not issues we need our children taken from us for, right? So we're going to have a 15-20-minute intermission, but don't go anywhere because we've got some really important next steps, action items. We need y'all here. So intermission, y'all. Yes.
I remember the day of your birth, the happiest day for me on this earth. You have my heart, you're my child, you're my first, born to me as a gift in this world. My love for you will never end, you should know that. The love is here, kept for you, I'll always show that. You'll forever have a place with me, don't let anybody try to nurture hate for me. I never thought it would end like this. I never planned just to call it quits. We can plan, but God plans better. Sometimes it's best when people aren't together. I tried to make it work for you. I never wanted it to hurt you too. Sometimes that's just how life goes. But you should always know that I will always show. You're my heart, you're my mind, you're my soul. You have my love, never stops, always grows. Find the truth, avoid the lies. God knows you were born to me as a test in this world. My love for you will never end, you should know that. The love is here, kept for you, I'll always show that. You'll forever have a place with me. Don't let anybody try to nurture hate for me. You were gonna be a daddy's girl. You were always such a happy girl. Frustrated by daddy's constant kisses. I'm glad you're too young to know what you'll be missing. I'll always be there for you. Baba's gonna be here for you. I know your Lord loves you too. Don't let anything get between him and you. Chin up, stay strong, stay firm. Make me proud, success in both worlds. Have faith, dream big, go pray. Be just, never lie and fear the last day. This world is a test for you. I'll always want the best for you. I only wish to see you grow. But you should always know that I will always show. You're my heart, you're my mind, you're my soul. You have my love, never stops, always grows. Find the truth, avoid the lies. God knows you were born to me as a gift in this world. My love for you will never end, you should know that. The love is here, kept for you, I'll always show that. You'll forever have a place with me. Don't let anybody try to nurture hate for me. You need to know that I tried my best, and through you, God's given me the hardest test. God's tests are for those that he loves, and I know justice will come from above. You were being kept away from me, clinging on, literally pulled away from me. To hurt me, they hurt you too, and now all you can do is look for the truth. There's a lot of bad dads in this world, not me. I'll always be there for my girl. I write to you to show you that I care, and I'll keep the letter safe no matter how many years. Please, never take sides with this. It's a system of Iblis behind all of this. They encourage fighting and lies, aiming to destroy and sever family ties. But those who side with evil never truly win. God is our protector through thick and thin. God knows my intentions are pure. He knows I did my duties as a husband and more. He knows I kept you both safe and secure. Women will forget, but God's keeping score. It's sad, but that's just how this life goes. But you should always know that I will always show. You're my heart, you're my mind, you're my soul. You have my love, never stops, always grows. Find the truth, avoid the lies. God knows you were born to me as a test in this world. My love for you will never end, you should know that. The love is here, kept for you, I'll always show that. You'll forever have a place with me. Don't let anybody try to nurture hate for me. I pray that while we're kept apart, that God will plant me deep in your heart. I'm your father to the end from the start, and I know you'll see the truth. I know he made you smart. You have to come back to me. Your place is with me naturally. I only wish to see you grow, and when we reunite, you see our love flow.